Welcome into the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We are now in week 12. We have a bunch of good games to get to throughout the course of today's podcast, Greg, and obviously there will be more in-depth analysis on the NFL matchup show later this weekend. But I would like to start with some things because the Titans are playing closer games of late.
Yes.
No moral victories in professional football. We understand this, and they're still 1-9. But Greg, I can't help but be impressed with the job that Denard Wilson and those players on defense
Yeah.
are doing here in the last couple of weeks, given all the different pieces and parts that have fluctuated around them.
Yeah. And it's funny because I started, watching that tape, and on the second play of the game, I see them blitz with Gray being the fifth rusher and Barton kind of green dogging. Green dogging means that they're playing man coverage, and Barton was responsible for the back in coverage, and the back stepped up to block Gray. So Barton then adds into the pressure. We call that a green dog. So he's not officially a pass rusher, but he then adds in. I saw that on the second play, and I'm thinking, oh, they really haven't blitzed a lot this year. And not that one blitz means they're going to blitz a lot, but then I just started taking note of it, Buck, because, I hadn't seen a lot of that. And as I'm watching, they really increased their blitz percentage in this game. And as I'm getting through the game, because I don't look at stats until I sort of see tape. I'm not one of those guys that starts with the stats. I start with the tape. But I'm noticing this. So then I did look up the blitz numbers, and it was a dramatic, significant increase in the amount of pressure, and it was effective. And also, they stunted a ton with their D line, even using linebackers as part of sort of blitz stunt concepts. And I thought they did a really, really good job. And I thought their defense played really, really well in this game. Obviously, Kevin Winston made his first start, played every snap. He showed up. He plays really well downhill, has a very quick trigger in the run game, smooth athlete, long athlete. You can see that on film. Just looks the part. You have to believe he'll become a good player. A player whose tape I loved when I watched him is next to last year in college before he got hurt. Um, Obviously, they played the rookie from Cal Harris at slot corner. He was fine. So I just thought the defense really stood out to me. And we haven't said that a lot. And also Denard has not blitzed a lot, and I think he would like to. So maybe he's just decided, you know what? It's time to do that. We won't know that until they play more games. But my sense, knowing Denard, is that he's not necessarily a sit back kind of guy. I think he would like to be aggressive, but at some point you have to be a little careful because of your corners. And obviously they struggled at the corner position, but so we'll see what happens going forward. But it was a fun watch.
Yeah, I am. We don't talk a great deal because Cam Ward is obviously the thing that most fans are hyper focused
Sure.
on. But Greg, like, if you're looking for any singular place where the Titans may have overachieved this season, and there's not many places, I'm not too married to one number or another because you can basically make the numbers, tell whatever story you're interested in
Right, right,
telling.
right.
But I
Yeah.
do like this stat called sack rate for
Yeah. Yeah.
defenses. And the Titans are top 10. I don't think most people would assume, given the struggles that
No.
Tennessee has had, that they are the 10th team in that top 10, but they are still getting to the quarterback about 7.3% of the time on opposing dropbacks.
Yeah, and the other thing too is they didn't do it much, but they only played two snaps of dime with six DBs, but it was 3-2-6 dime, meaning that they kept Barton and Gray on the field. And on those plays, Simmons lined up as a wide 9D end. And actually, his sack in the fourth quarter on 3rd and 5 came when he was as a wide 9D end, where they had a really good stun. And that was a stun where Ward lined up, head up on the center. He was the picker or the penetrator, and Winston from the second level, he was the looper, and he forced Mills out of the pocket, and then Simmons cleaned it up, and it was if they were a good team and they were going to be on our matchup show, that's the kind of defensive sack that I would show do as a piece because it was really a nice concept, well executed. Simmons lining up on the edge, which obviously he doesn't do very often, but they did some really good things on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and on the offensive side, they did have a 95-yard scoring drive at the end, Greg. Too little, too late, unfortunately,
Yeah.
for Tennessee. But so what did you see on that drive and on the 38-yard completion to Chigaconko, their most explosive
Oh,
play of the day?
yeah. I would say in general, I thought that Ward played with a little more poise and comfort in the pocket. I thought he was taking throws that were there and not waiting and chasing plays, which he has a tendency to do. I still think he needs work in just increasing his drop tempo. He's got to get back in the pocket and set up quicker. He just still tends to be a little lackadaisical in that regard. But obviously the throw to Okonkwo was phenomenal because number one, he had to turn it loose really early because of the pressure. I mean, there was backside pressure by Hunter, and he had to turn it loose when Okonkwo, who ran a deep sail route, was at the 30-yard line, and the ball was caught at the 10-yard line. So Okonkwo ran 20 yards with the ball in the air, and it was placed perfectly. And he took a shot as soon as he finished his delivery. Those are really good quarterback plays. I'm sure everybody's talking about the incompletion to Kinsey, which it would have been a touchdown, if it was executed. I know that play well. It's a play that everybody runs. It's a post wheel combination, meaning that there's a post route on the outside, and then a wheel route from the inside by Kinsey. And Kinsey actually, to me, okay, and like I said, I've seen this play 100 times. Maybe Nick Holtz or Bo Hardegree would tell me differently, but to me, Kinsey ended up being too far inside on his wheel route from the slot. So two things happened. I thought he was too far inside, and Ward had pressure from the inside with tight end Helm not holding his block long enough. So Ward had to turn it loose before he had a defined indicator from Kinsey on his break upfield. And ideally, you want Kinsey further outside before he turns upfield. So there wasn't the connection and the timing wasn't right. Because Kinsey's running a wheel. He should be catching the ball. And I know people, when we do this can see me. He should be catching the ball this way, not over his back shoulder. He
Right.
should be catching the ball running this way, and then it would have been a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a combination of I thought Kinsey was too far inside when he started to turn up, and that Ward had to get rid of the ball because Helm just couldn't hold the block quite long enough for Ward to wait that extra beat to really get the indicator from Kinsey.
Yeah, and Mason Kinsey's only out there because Calvin Ridley gets hurt in this game.
I know.
Elikaya Manor is missing time now with a hamstring injury, Greg. Chimere
Yeah,
DK sounds like he's going to play
yeah.
on Sunday, but they're depleted as far as that goes, and they didn't have a ton to work with as wide receivers
No,
to begin
and
with.
my guess is DK and Ayaman who I think are both going to be good players. They're probably facing the fact that they've probably hit the wall to some degree. I mean, this is a long season for them.
Yeah.
They've never played and worked this much. It happens with a lot of rookies. I'm not saying they did or didn't, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's just, it's a tough deal. We're going into, shoot, it's only week 12, but for them, it probably feels like it's week 25.
They're not alone in that fact. Only week 12, Greg. I'm sitting there no, week 12. Just bad body language, but I'm not working nearly as hard as they are, obviously.
Right, right, right.
The other part of this is it's not going to get easier for them because Seattle's coming to town, and Seattle's defense is awesome
It's
so far.
very good too. Very
I,
good defense.
I don't know if you could feel better about a team that lost last week, but the fact that they were still in it against the Rams with Darnold
Yeah,
throwing 4 interceptions is a testament to what they've done all year long.
their defense is really good. It's funny. Before the season started, because I do Seattle radio, I told my guys out there that they're going to have a really good defense this year. I said that this summer, and it's turned out that way. They're different defense than the one they just played, which is really good too. I mean, Houston has a great. So the back to back, they're playing two great defenses. This is a real challenge this week. One of my favorite players in the draft was Nick Emenwari, the safety from South Carolina, who is now essentially being used in a Mike McDonald defense, somewhat similarly to the way he deployed Kyle Hamilton the year he spent in Baltimore. And Emenwari's playing almost every snap. Really good player. I mean, they're good at every level. I mean, they're really good at all three levels.
Yeah. Sam Darnold obviously not having his best performance last week, Greg, but on the whole, he's been, I would imagine, more than they could have expected. And they paid him like a starting quarterback. He's playing like a starting quarterback, but he's
Yeah.
really held the line all season long.
Yeah, he's an aggressive thrower. Um, that's what he's always been. And, he had the bad game last week. That happens in the league. You know how it is with Darnold. It's probably the same with Daniel Jones too. People waiting for the bad game and then, oh, I told you, but and who knows what's going to happen this week with Darnold. My guess is he'll bounce back and be fine. But that's an offense that fits him really, really well. They do push it down the field. That's the way he sort of sees and processes the game. He's had a really good season, really good season.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Seattle's a 13 and a half point favorite coming to town, and that feels
But
about right. But
that's like a college favorite, unfortunately.
yeah, it's the second time the
Yeah.
Titans have been 13 and a half point underdogs so far this season at Indy and then home for Seattle. So
Ooh.
no stranger to them, unfortunately, but that's just been the way that this season's gone. They're not a good football team, Greg, but they're also terribly unlucky in terms of this schedule.
Yeah,
The
well,
defenses that
it's
they
gonna
faced.
just to put a wrap on, obviously we'll see how this season plays out. But one of the things that really stands out when you watch this offense. Okay. And again, it's tough to make dramatic changes in the middle of the season, so you just play and you hope guys improve and you coach them. But I mean, they play the highest percentage of 11 personnel in the league. Okay. 76%. Um, they've been in more 3-by-1 sets than any team in the league, and they don't really feature much pre-snap movement as a foundation of the offense. So in many ways, they're kind of a static offense. Now, this is not a knock on the coaches because I don't do that. It could be a function of many different things. Rookie quarterback, rookie receivers, rookie tight end. I mean, an O-line that quite frankly has not performed anywhere near what people thought they would, given the pedigree of some of these players. So there's could be many reasons why,
Yeah.
but the point is that really limits what you can do. So it's just one of those things. That's why I'm so anxious to see, and we're going to get to this, like you said, we're only in week 12, so we got a ways to go. But I'm very curious to see what the coaching search entails because, Cam Ward's going to be the quarterback. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're not looking for a new quarterback next year, nor do I think you should. I think he's shown enough. He needs some work and specific, just like Caleb Williams needed work. And you can see the growth there as the season's progressing under Ben Johnson. You know, Depending on who the coach is, if it's the right one, you'll see that same growth with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So uh, I'm very curious to see how that plays out. Well, plenty of time to talk about that, but that's just the stuff I start to think about.
No, absolutely. That's what Titans fans are thinking about, certainly.
Yeah, yeah.
Thursday morning as we tape this podcast, which means Thursday night football between the Bills at the Texans, Greg.
A
Texans
huge
are
game. Yeah.
500 and Davis Mills is going to make this start again at quarterback. We talked a little bit about Davis Mills and that you can line up and play with him to an
Without
extent.
question.
Are you seeing at least a more I don't want to say that the offense has been better because that's not accurate with CJ Stroud out of the lineup, but CJ Stroud has had his struggles this year, and also the Texans offensive line has been playing a little better than they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, although it's funny, they had some issues against the Titans. It's
Yeah,
funny
they
you
did.
say that.
They did.
Yeah. Um, this is a fascinating game tonight because that defense of the Texans is really good. And, we know that Josh Allen made those Josh Allen plays last week, but you can't say that, oh, he's going to do that tonight. You don't know. Those are special plays. They're outside of structure. There's a certain randomness to them, you know. So I'm really curious to see that side of the ball tonight, the Bills offense, which I don't think and I know they can have games where they score a lot of points, and we know Josh Allen can be Superman anytime, but he hasn't been as consistent this year in terms of, running the offense in the pass game as he was a year ago. There's a real difficult balance. I'm not a coach. I would think it would be very difficult to try to get Josh to sort of play structured football without losing the Superman element to his game.
Yeah.
That Shavers 43-yard touchdown he threw last week, which was obviously a ridiculous throw off movement. It should never have gotten to that. It was 3rd and 3, and the play design worked, and he looked right at Gabe Davis, who was wide open on a curl route, and he didn't throw it.
No.
And then he runs around and makes a play. But you can't count on that kind of play being made. They're not going into this game saying, you know what, we're playing a really good defense tonight. Let's just run around and you'll make some plays. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think with Josh, he may have a proclivity to make that happen more than your average quarterback for sure. But
He does.
he was a man possessed in that Bucks game. One of the more fun games back and
Yeah.
forth to watch
He
all
also
year
threw two
long.
picks that were bad, and who knows? Maybe it's just that's Josh Allen, and you got to live with it. That may be the case, but sometimes, as we saw a couple of weeks ago against Miami when they only put up 13 and didn't score in the first half. Tonight's game is truly fascinating on that side of the ball.
Another fascinating one, Greg, and I don't know where it might be in the NFL matchup show, though I assume it is in there, is the Colts at the Chiefs,
Oh
who
yeah,
are also
yeah.
5-5. Kansas City needs this, and things have not been super fluid for the Chiefs on offense. We thought they might have found a little bit of a fix at about a third of the way through the season, but there have been some struggles there. What intrigues you about this game?
Yeah, the Chiefs are an odd team right now. I mean, obviously their offense has not been as good, but their defense has not quite been as good either in those sort of critical high leverage situations, which has surprised me a bit. But don't forget the last 2 years, just like you said, all anybody wants to talk about is Cam Ward in Kansas City, and in the country, all anybody wants to talk about is Patrick Mahomes. But really, their defense the last 2, 3 years has been phenomenal
Yeah.
and really, really good in critical situations. And it hasn't quite been the case this year. So, and a lot of people like to say, hey, the running game travels. Jonathan Taylor's the only back in the league with over 1,000 yards. He leads the league in rushing by a ridiculous amount. He's actually ahead of Barkley's pace from a year ago. But, the question is, I would expect that if they can't run the ball well, and I think back to the Super Bowl when Spags made a concerted effort to stop Barkley, and he did. If they put Daniel Jones into long yardage situations, I wouldn't be surprised if Spags really goes after him in this game.
Yeah.
Just to try to get that defense back to the swagger. Because that defense the last number of years they've had a swagger.
Yeah, and third down has been a bigger difficulty for them this year than it has been in years past as a
Correct.
defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their efficiency is suffering as a result, and not just one thing. Obviously, there's a multitude of
Right.
factors there, but that certainly jumps out when you look at what the Chiefs have been able to do and what's allowed them to have a more successful
Yeah.
NFL matchup show. Of course, on Saturday morning, set your DVRs, watch it on demand on ESPN Plus as you choose. Greg, what else are you highlighting this week that people should be dialed into?
Well, in the matchup show, I got my list right here. We got Colts Chiefs. We got Steelers Bears. By the way, that's a really big game, and I think Caleb Williams is really improving nicely.
Yeah.
I watch him every week. Bucks Rams, very big game. Vikings Packers. There's been a lot of talk about McCarthy. Maybe we can discuss him another week. That Eagles Cowboys game is fascinating to me, particularly with the Cowboys O Eagles D. And then the Monday nighter, who would have thought Panthers Niners? The Panthers are 6-5, and Young's coming off a franchise record 448 passing yards. Now he's not going to do that every week, obviously, and it was fascinating the way he did it against a team that plays a ton of man and pressures a lot with the Falcons, and the Niners are nothing like that. So he's facing a totally different defense, but that's another really big game. I mean, all these games, even Patriots Bengals, like hey, Joe Burrow was a full participant, took all the snaps with the ones yesterday. He could well be the starting quarterback on Sunday.
Yeah. He'll be without Jamar Chase, we know, of course, but that's a circumstance that is beyond
So,
Burrow's
so in other words,
control.
he might be spitting in the wind a little bit this week without him.
I would say that might be an accurate assessment. A little lighter in the pockets as a result, too. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, buddy, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for making it, and we'll look forward to catching up again in week 13.
All right. Thanks, Buck. Really appreciate it.